Yeah, it's 10 a.m. and I know that people might pop in, but we're going to go ahead and get started because I want to release you 5 till so that you can get into the next session. Welcome all. My name is Tracy Howe. My pronouns are she and they, and I am the minister and team leader for faith education, formation, and innovation at the National Setting of the United Church of Christ. That's part of the Love of Church unit. And I'm also a member at Good Shepherd UCC in Sahuarita and a part of the Southwest Conference here. So it's delightful to be with you all. I have been working as a part of the Manual on Local Church working group from the beginning. And so I'm really excited to share what this journey has been. And I'm going to start with just some questions to get a sense of who's in the room and what you all are hoping for. So my first question, I would love for you to put your name and your local church in the city you're in. Again, we just did that in the icebreakers, but I imagine there's new people here too. And when you do that, I would love to know if you have heard of the Manual on Local Church before this workshop. So go ahead and start putting that into the chat and I'll just get a feeling for that. You may have been introduced last General Synod. There was workshops on the Manual on Local Church, and we also released a game, which you'll be seeing pieces of through this workshop called Grow Your Church. And we had really wonderful feedback from that. But go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat. Let me know if you've heard of the Manual on Local Church. All right. We're getting started. Welcome, Alice and Leslie. All right, so we're getting a mix of yes and no. That's great. All right, so this presentation will be valuable to you, whether or not if this is the first time you are hearing about the Manual on Local Church or you've been following it for the past 5 years. We definitely have new information that has not been shared before. So I am going to ask another question in the chat. You can feel free to keep answering that one, which is just introducing yourself, letting us know your local church and city you're in, as well as if you've heard of the Manual on Local Church or not. But I'm going to ask this second question. This second question is from the Grow Your Church board game. And the Grow Your Church board game is a way of engaging part of the Manual on Local Church called the Marks for Faithful and Vital Local Churches. It is modeled after the Manual on Ministry. If you've heard the Marks for Faithful Ministry that authorized ministers kind of seek competency in and use as guidelines for growing ministry. But the Marks for Faithful and Vital Local Churches are ways of imagining the fullness of ministry in the world today. And it also is a really incredible way to get to know one another within the setting of a local church and what your dreams are for ministry in your setting. So this question from the seed cards from the game is, if your local church, your spiritual community, had a superpower, what would it be? And as you think of an answer, go ahead and put it in the chat. I'll read some of them out. Oh, loving others. Wouldn't that be like just the superpower to have all the time, the capacity to do that with faithfulness and regularity and all of the others, whatever that means? Being able to meet the needs of the unhoused, oh, that would be a great superpower. Ooh, to dissolve hate, that would be great, especially if it came with like an action, like you like put your hand out and then all the hate just dissolved. These are great. Wonderful. All right, keep on populating them as we go. I might refer back to them, and I certainly am going to save this chat. Each time we present on the Manual on Local Church, someone from the working group And the working group mostly is actually not national staff. The working group is mostly just people in the wider church community. Whenever we have a presentation, we are going to use this opportunity to glean all the wisdom and get all of the feedback that we can. So this is actually a research experiment as well, and there will be a feedback survey at the end. So you'll have a chance to give feedback on what you heard about the Manual on Local Church, about this presentation and how I'm giving it, if that was accessible to you, and any other things that you can share towards success and just living into our covenant together. Before I start the PowerPoint slide deck, I'm going to ask that we join together in prayer. Oh, these are just beautiful. Thank you. Yes, definitely keep populating the church superpower. Let us pray. God of community, God of covenantal love, God of promise, we ask that you would bring us together in this time for that it would be a space of joyful imagination with your spirit of truth, that you would allow us to see our local churches within the design and imagination and work of the Manual on Local Church, as well as give us inspiration as to how we can continue to be faithful to witness to the gospel of Jesus Christ in the time and place in which we are. We ask this through all the names which your love is embodied, and in the beautiful and strong name of Jesus. Amen. Okay, so let's get my slide deck up. The Manual on Local Church. So in this workshop, what I hope to do is give you some context, give you some critical definitions that are really important for the Manual on Local Church. We're actually going to crowdsource some wisdom when it comes to defining covenant. We're going to look through the 4 sections of the Manual on Local Church, starting with the Congregational Code, which is a covenantal framework through which our local churches can embody and demonstrate specific relationships, what it means to be in the United Church of Christ. And local church governance, we'll just touch that. It's a lot of really specific and practical resources for local churches to attend to everything they need to in order to be in compliance with bylaws, legal standing in their specific state and in the United States, as well as just practices, leadership, conflict engagement, lots of practical tools. The next part is standing support and accountability. And that really is how local churches and conferences and associations work together to demonstrate their covenantal commitments to one another, to support one another, and of course, how processes and what that looks like. We won't dig too much into that, but I'll just introduce it. And then we'll look at the marks for faithful and vital local churches again, and you'll see this beautiful artwork throughout the presentation comes from the game Grow Your Church, and of course a feedback survey at the end with some Q&A. So to start with, context for the Manual on Local Church. Let's see if I can shrink this. Sometimes it hides the screen. There we go. So if you are new to the United Church of Christ or haven't been to a General Synod, maybe you don't even know what General Synod is. General Synod is a gathering that has happened every 2 years. It will soon happen every 3 years. And it's where representatives from all through the denomination come together. And it's where our governance for our entire denomination happens. And this has happened since our inception in 1957, when, of course, the United Church of Christ was actually formed as a part of this uniting church movement. So we just went through 2 world wars. We're seeing kind of sectarian violence, which is violence based on identity. So what some of us remember in Northern Ireland, where Catholics and Protestants, all of a sudden the sectarian violence just from their identity is springing out. And as a result, there is this global movement of Christian unity, and the United Church of Christ is part of that. And we prioritized living in unity. And the way that we decided to do that was through a covenantal polity. That means that we don't have rules and regulations that come from on high. We actually covenant with one another as to the way that we will live and grow and do our ministry together. Now, how you do that with such great diversity as we have in the United Church of Christ, we have theological diversity, we have cultural diversity, we have urban churches and small and rural churches. We have just a lot of different kinds of ways of being church. And so there's been continual tension as well as to how we live in covenant and hold one another accountable and maintain our commitment to kind of self-determination and what we understand is covenantal autonomy, local church autonomy within the context of our covenants. So this conversation has been going on for nearly 70 years. And I want to just say that because General Synod 2019 was not the start of it. As churches have continued to struggle with this and associations and conferences in covenant with them, that's what started this grassroots movement as to maybe we actually need to address this more effectively in our bylaws and actually resource people more effectively, because we want vitality, but we're struggling with how to get the resources out to our local churches. And our bylaws actually say that associations or conferences acting as associations, like it is here in the Southwest Conference, that they actually are supposed to recognize and maintain local church standing. And there's actually no process for that. And this covenant is just a really big word. There's not a single definition of covenant. There's, even in the Bible, there's covenants. The first covenants we see are like, God making the covenant with Noah that God's not going to destroy the earth any longer. And here's the symbol for that. Here's a rainbow. Also, we have covenant that we understand of the action of God's love through time, like God taking the enslaved Hebrews out of Israel and into liberation. And what does it mean for us in the United Church of Christ to be in covenantal relationship with one another? So covenantal clarity is really important here. For some reason, it's not letting me move. Here we go. So this is what a resolution looks like if you've never seen one. I'm not going to read all this, but this was the resolution that came up in the 31st General Synod, and that would be 2019, discerning, articulating, and resourcing the nature, purpose, composition, and covenantal autonomy and definition of the basic unit of life and organization of the United Church of Christ. And the basic unit of life in the United Church of Christ is the local church. So from this, the action points are in the therefore be it resolved. There are 4 points here, and we are going to look at point 3. So from this resolution came the mandate to produce a manual on local church, akin to the manual on ministry, for use by all settings of the church to fully live into their covenantal responsibilities and privileges under the Constitution of the United Church of Christ. And this manual will speak to items including, but not limited to, a congregational code, marks of faithful and vital congregations, and processes and resources for birthing, admitting, strengthening, revitalizing, and releasing congregations. So to understand some of the tension here, this is actually from our Constitution, the United Church of Christ Constitution. Here in Article 4, it says an association or a conference acting as association is that body which determines, confers, and certifies to the standing of the local churches of the United Church of Christ. But again, it's never been clarified as to how that happens. So the resolution came in summer 2019. You can kind of ride this visual timeline with me. And from there, the UCC board, specifically the Committee on Ministry, commissioned the FaithINFO team, which is the team that I lead, to administrate and facilitate this. We did not lead it. We actually were instructed not to lead it. We participated and facilitated and administrated. And a working group was put together of 20 people from across the denomination. And part of the vetting was, can you commit to a process that is likely to go 5 or 6 years? This has been no small commitment. So if you meet anyone who has been on the Manual and Local Church Working Group, please thank them for all of the work that they've put in. And as we got started, we hit COVID-19 and of course had to adapt under those extraordinary circumstances, as you all did. And we started our process of research. Now, this was case studies, so people talking about what actually is happening in their local churches, in their conferences and settings, interviews. We also reflected on the texts in our tradition. We've had a number of resolutions, we've had theological writings, we've had books published on covenant and autonomy. We've had a lot of work already done. And so the working group just took on this really incredible project to go through all that as we started to look at what this would be now. We didn't have a working retreat in person until the summer of 2022. But from that, we were able to put a very rough draft together for AM21, which is authorized ministry in the 21st century. And that's something that committees on ministry, conference and association staff come to. And it was presented there and it was workshopped. And we received all of that really important feedback and we integrated it into our ongoing process. The governance section, which is, has to do with even like how do local churches go about writing your bylaws. We worked with our general counsel on that. We had to do due diligence in terms of everything we were putting into it. And in the lead up, we're thinking about how do we introduce folks to the Manual and Local Church? We designed a game around the marks for faithful and vital local churches so that, this is another slide if you didn't see me click over, in General Synod 34, which was last summer, we could share the game and present a few sections. So there actually are some released sections. The Marks for Faithful and Vital Local Churches is released. And also some of the processes for new and renewing church starts, which I'm very happy to tell you are often sought in our denomination. We often get news that everything's shrinking and people are leaving, but we actually have a lot of new church plants every year, and people are hungry for those resources. This last fall, we had an intensive writing treat with just half of the working group, people who felt like writing and refining all of these notes and research was a gift. And we had a really wonderful time, and it was very demanding, but spiritually full and joyful. And from that draft, we oversaw an editing process. So we came to a first full draft, and that was a huge milestone. That was in February. And from there, as I mentioned earlier, we had been, in addition to the 20-person working group, we had hundreds of people who applied to be on the working group. And a number of them could not understandably commit to a process this big. And some of them desired to be readers. We also solicited more reader feedback. And gave folks a couple of months to give really detailed, thoughtful, prayerful feedback. And we're now in the process of integrating all of that towards a public draft, hopefully in just a couple of weeks. If you're curious about who is on the Manual on Local Church Working Group, sorry, I didn't mean to make my screen small. Let's see here. Go down. This is a list of people on the Manual on Local Church reading group, or working group, I'm sorry. I'm not going to read them all, but just so you can see, I mean, we had people from just all of our different embodiments trying to really be faithful to what the United Church of Christ is now and what the United Church of Christ is becoming. And our greatest hope, what would signal that we have been faithful and effective, is if every local church in our denomination is able to see themselves reflected in this document. That is really what we hope. We can't, be everything to everyone. We're not seeking perfection. We are seeking faithfulness in this time as to what the United Church of Christ is and can be. So this Manual on Local Church is to be a resource for local churches to embody faithful and vital witness and ministry by, one, recognizing themselves as part of the whole united and uniting body of the United Church of Christ through covenant. Two, to build and continue faithful and effective expressions of the local church through healthy governance. And three, by proclaiming and engaging identity and membership in the United Church of Christ through obtaining and maintaining local church standing in its conference or association. The Manual on Local Church is also a resource for conferences and associations, equipping them to support their local churches and maintain accountable relationships in their ongoing witness and ministries. And the Manual on Local Church is also a resource for the whole of the United Church of Christ, imparting a vision of faithfulness and vitality by offering marks of faithful and vital local churches that build upon the specific and continuing witness and ministry of the United Church of Christ. In short, the Manual on Local Church seeks to provide tools to fulfill the mission that the United Church of Christ has proclaimed in faith. So I'm going to stop. I just spoke a whole lot, and we're going to get a chance to go into breakout rooms. And I'm going to ask Wendy or Adrian, who I believe are giving tech support here, if you could please prepare breakout rooms of 3 people each. What I would love for you to do now, as I just introduced the Manual on Local Church, and it's really going to center around what is covenantal relationship in the United Church of Christ. I really want to give you the chance to talk about that with one another and then come back and share your wisdom or some of your ongoing questions. And the way that we're going to do that, the way that we're going to do that is through addressing these questions. What is the difference between a rule of law and a covenant? Do any of these definitions and descriptions trouble you? And if the definitions I have on the next slide are from Covenant, a study for the United Church of Christ by Jane Fissler Hoffman. And I'll leave this slide up for you as you go into your breakout rooms. Actually, I'm not sure you're able to see them, so I will cut and copy this text for you into the chat so that you all can see it once you get into your breakout rooms. Walter Brueggemann spoke at the 12th General Synod and said the word covenant means many things, but as a beginning, it means this much: a way of being committed to each other as God is committed to us, a way of being defined by, accountable to, and responsible for each other. God has made that deep and abiding commitment to us, and we affirm that our pilgrimage together is marked by such costly, disciplined, and an abiding commitment. So I'm going to copy and paste the definitions into the chat for you all as you go into your chat rooms.
All right, I had a question.
And I'm
Does
also going
everybody-
to give you those questions. And I want to give you 10 minutes to reflect on these things. So as long as people can see the chat still, Wendy or Adrian, you can go ahead and divide folks up into breakout rooms of 3 people.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Are you able to hear me? Okay, so I think we need help with the breakout rooms. We've created 3 breakout rooms. I think Wendy is, Wendy, are you here still? Okay, so I don't think Wendy's here still, which is fine. We've created the 3 breakout rooms and I just clicked let host help in deciding who goes to which room.
I
So
see.
how do people do it? I see a couple people have joined. You just click join one of them.
You just click join. Yep.
Okay, so everybody click join and then we'll be in our breakout rooms and see what happens from there.
Thanks so much, everybody. See you in 10 minutes.
Well, good. I don't see join.
Okay, no problem. Let's walk through it. Is this Leslie talking?
Yes.
Hi. Okay, so let's see which one room you're assigned to. Leslie.
I
Oh,
was
room
there
3.
once and had to come back. Now I
Oh.
can't figure out how to get back in there. This is the most confusing system ever.
Okay, let me try to move you to room 2. See if that gives you a different invite.
Okay. Join.
Okay, looks like she joined. All right, now just the last of us left. I don't know how to join either, so I'm going to help you guys and hopefully I'll figure out it by the end there. So, who needs help getting into a breakout room? Okay, Reverend Susie with an S. Let's see. She is assigned to room 3 as well. I'm going to manually move you to room 2. Let's see if the invite comes up. I don't know what it looks like on your end. Okay. Okay. There she goes. Okay. Who's next?
Janet still needs to be put in a room. We can maybe put you in a room, Janet.
Let's see. Let's see if we can put Janet in room 3.
I see a few folks, Judith and
Okay.
Tor Thornton and George Newby, that you all might just be listening on audio and unable to participate, and that's fine. If you want to be put in a room, go ahead and unmute and let us know. Otherwise, know that people will be coming back in 10 minutes. And we'll continue the conversation if you're just wanting to listen to this presentation.
I don't know where we're going and how we get back. So I'm assigning them to different rooms. Let's see if that encourages folks to join a different room. Oh, looks like one more person joined. Okay, I assigned Judith to room 2.
And I am not going to be in a room.
Okay, should I stay here too?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Unless you want to participate.
No, I've never used this feature actually in Zoom.
Okay, so we can stay here and we can figure out how to pull everyone back.
Okay. So George, I'm gonna send him to room. Wow, they're evenly split to room 2. There you go, George. If you wanted to join, you can just click in there. If not, you can hang out with us.
Thanks so much, Adrian. If you've never done that before, I'm quite impressed.
Yeah, I just clicked on the dots. It's so user-friendly and it's like breakout rooms. I'm like, okay, it must be that. Click. And then it's like, how many breakout rooms do you want? You said 3. I clicked at 3. And then that last part, it was like, do you want the co-host to be involved in assigning rooms? And so I clicked that at first so that way you would have the control there. But then I saw the other one that said, do you want everybody to be able to go into any room? And I'm like, yeah, that one's better.
Yeah. There's a way to where it just like randomly does it, and you just say, but I honestly am not very adept at it. I'm usually doing this. And magical support people are making magic things happen. So
when they go into their breakout rooms, it's just private meeting rooms, and then they have just what you posted in the chat?
Yeah. So I posted it in the chat so that they can review these definitions and descriptions and then talk about covenant together.
Cool. I like the socialness of or the social study of when in that room with 10 people, who is it? Because it's really, a lot of them are leaders, a lot of them are reverends,
Yeah.
or teachers in their own right. So who is it that's like, okay, everybody, I'll read, I'll be the one to write on the board.
Totally. So Adrian, it's really nice to meet you.
Thank you.
How long have you been working for the Southwest Conference?
About 65 days.
Yeah, I was like, Adrian's gotta be new. And I
She's
hear
new.
you're Apache.
Yes, I'm Apache from San Carlos, Arizona.
Amazing, amazing. So I heard you were the one that got Wensler to be
That's
involved in
John,
this.
actually. John, the guy
Um,
who's just joining. Oh, dang, he left.
Oh, cool. Well, I'm really excited. I've been part of local efforts here in Tucson and the community peacemaker team efforts, and we'll do an accompaniment at some point in time. And I've been working with our National Minister for Environmental Justice and Karen Georgia Thompson to get an amicus brief from National. So
That's so amazing. It's so crazy that there are people out there doing stuff and people who care and organizing in ways that are so brave. I'm like, whoa. I definitely don't fit in. I haven't done any sort of activism on this. And I'm just like, okay, so if they're gonna take it and there's nothing we can do, even if like our white friends are like, hey, respect their religious rights too, then can we like, I guess I feel like, should there be a negotiation that would help these people survive?
I have a lot of thoughts on that. That would be like a
Financial.
big conversation. And if you
Okay,
ever want to
cool.
have coffee, I'd love to, we could
Can't wait.
totally do that because
That's so cool.
yes,
I gotta
that
learn.
you are, what you are expressing is so rational.
Mm.
And settler colonialism, as you know, is not rational.
Yeah,
So
yes. I've noticed over the past couple of years, like the freeways getting rebuilt, the bridges getting reinforced, widened. I'm like, there's about to be a lot of stuff going in, out, and around here. Can we get a cut of each barrel?
So William and Patty, welcome. If you're just listening, what's happening is people are in breakout rooms right now talking on covenant. And we are going to pull everyone back into the room in about 4 minutes now. Maybe Adrian, you should look at that so we can do that.
Yeah, let me show you what I'm seeing.
So if you're just wanting to listen in, that's wonderful. You're welcome to stay here. Just know that people will come back in about 4 minutes.
Okay. So I
It
would
says
just click
time
here, close
remaining
all
10
rooms.
minutes, but we need to, yeah.
So it should be fine. So I'll just click close room and then everyone will pop back in here.
Yes, can you send messages to all the rooms though, that there's 3 minutes remaining?
Let's see. How do I send messages? Not seeing that.
Broadcast, that's what it's called.
Oh,
I can
broadcast.
do it
Okay.
here.
Okay.
Broadcast message.
Broadcast message. Okay.
3 minutes remaining.
Oh, okay. Now I know that feature. And you can do broadcast voice. Whoa. I'm going to say broadcast voice when it comes time.
That would be a little weird.
Okay. Like, who is that?
Are you able to stop the Zoom screen is sharing?
Oh, hang on.
Are you able to stop that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So close all rooms now.
No, give them 2 more minutes.
Okay.
And we'll broadcast closing rooms now.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna try to. Pull up a document here. Okay, so you can broadcast 1 minute left, and then after 60 seconds, go ahead and close the room.
Okay. Okay, 1 minute left. I did the broadcast voice. See if it worked. They're like, who is that? Somebody mute yourself. Oh, hi, Sonia.
Welcome. People in breakout rooms are coming right back.
Okay.
Oh. Welcome, Sonia. People are in breakout rooms right now, and they're coming back right now.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I just clicked close and it says all participants have been given a 60 seconds to leave their breakout rooms.
Great.
And I remember even if I don't remember. Is she there? Do you see her?
All right, I think we all made it back.
Susie.
Wonderful. Okay, so just to get a little temperature feel, we're going to do a little chat, a little chat back. If you could tell me one word about what that time was like for you in the breakout room. It could be, one word like distracted or whatever. Put one word in the chat to let me know how that time was.
Can I ask a question?
You can. What would be great is if you could please put it in the chat, or actually the Q&A, and anyone can ask a question, just because as we're really limited on time, then there will be a Q&A at the end. Okay. Encouraging, passionate, helpful dialogue. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. So what I would love there were 3 rooms. I would like one person from each room to answer one of the questions that was asked. You don't have to explain a lot, but again, those questions were, what is the difference between a rule, a law, and a covenant? Do any of these definitions and descriptions trouble you? Do you experience living in covenant in your life? If so, how? And for what definition of covenant will best serve the manual on local church? So I'm going to just say people that were in a group with Leslie Etheridge. That group, do we have one volunteer who would like to share and answer on behalf of the group one of those questions? And if you all could kind of chat to each other from the other 2 groups to decide who's going to do that for the other 2, that would be great. So Leslie, we're not getting any volunteers. So I would love for you to maybe invite someone from your group, or you yourself can share to answer one of those questions, or just share something that was said in your group.
Yeah. I think Tom could speak to this, but I will also say that we didn't really look so much at the questions. I don't know that we found them, but we talked about covenant and the meaning of covenant. And the word that stood out the most to me and that I was most pleased to hear was sacred, as far as covenant goes. And that we're steeped in that in the UCC and proud of that. I'd welcome Tom's or anyone's comments as well.
Yeah.
Any
Tracy,
follow-up from that group?
we picked up on the definition of covenant that you quoted of Walter Brueggemann, and how he said, that it's essentially being in relationship with each other in the way that God is in relationship with us. So mutuality, respect for the autonomy of the other, yet a meaningful connect bridge. And we reflected a little bit about how that might relate to interfaith work, and justice work. But yeah, if we centered in on that notion of a sacred relationship.
Thank you. That's super helpful. All right, let's go to the next group. I have a direct message report back that there was conversation around bonding versus binding, that is relational and faith-filled versus legal and regulated. If that was your group and you want to add something, go ahead and unmute and speak out.
That was my message, because I came in with kind of a binding definition. So then I was looking at the definition that you shared around the etymological meaning of a bond. And so that's kind of where I ended up from our discussion when we were talking about relational and faith-filled, and more on the bonding. And I was thinking more of a fabric that connected people.
Great, thank you.
And I think
All
another
right.
important
if anyone from that group wants to, Christopher, go
yeah,
ahead.
thanks, Tracy. I was just going to say another important insight from our group is that, because we all live a different human experience, it's sometimes challenging for us to understand other people's experience. And so in covenant, it's really key to open one's heart to the truth and the experience of others and try and let it penetrate and change us as part of the covenant process, so that we can actually then come together and find and discern common ground.
Yes, thank you. I feel like that is really important, specifically for covenantal relationship in the United Church of Christ. So well done, thank you. The third group. If you're in the group that hasn't shared out. Can anyone give us insight as to how your conversation went? If you answered any of the questions presented in the chat? Okay, so I will invite you all to continue to share. Sometimes I'm an internal processor, and so even if I just came from the chat, I take a few minutes to really figure out what I want to say. So if that's you, go ahead and use the chat to continue to share what felt like prescient or important or compelling things in the chat. And I am going to now share with you what definition we came up with for covenant for the purpose of the Manual on Local Church in the United Church of Christ. Okay. So we were just here. So I will say that this is still a working definition. So when you get to that feedback form, you are very welcome to comment on these definitions. These definitions were edited because of all the reader feedback we just received. So this process of really making this a document that comes from our denomination just takes a lot of time and conversations like these. So you're part of this process now. So covenants in the United Church of Christ for the Manual Local Church, to frame the Manual Local Church, covenants between entities and settings. So local churches to local churches to the conference, all of the different ways that we relate to one another as entities and settings in the United Church of Christ, are God-initiated promises that knit us together in relationship and practice through the Holy Spirit for the faithful witness of the gospel and the mutual flourishing of local churches and wider expressions of the United Church of Christ. Now, we could do this whole process on autonomy, and honestly, we could spend like week-long retreats to do this, but I will say the same process for church autonomy, relationship in the United Church of Christ is a non-transferable responsibility of a local church to discern and respond to God's call for it, inclusive of its purpose, mission, and vision, and the creative embodiment of these things in its time and place. Now, through the course of our denomination, public theologians, we have really incredible lay leader theologians that haven't published books. Donald Freeman, a lot of work on, in one of his articles on local church autonomy, said, constituted by divine grace, what holds the United Church of Christ together from the human side are two things: and faith in Jesus Christ, Son of God and Savior, and sole head of the church. Sets of covenant promises exchanged by units and persons, of which it is thereby composed. So the Congregational Code is that set of, is kind of a three-part covenant that structures this, what I call covenantal framework of relationship around the local church, which again is the basic unit of life in our denomination. I won't read through all of this because we're short on time, but this is the introduction to the Congregational Code, and we're going to jump right to it now. So it's three parts. The first part is relying on the grace of God. We covenant with God to love God with our whole being and to love our neighbors as ourselves. Affirm and proclaim that Jesus Christ is the sole head of the church. Celebrate that the church is an outpouring of the gifts of God through the Holy Spirit. And though individual members of local churches contribute to it in their own contexts, the whole church belongs to God. Continue to deepen our faith and embody our unique ministry in the world using the Bible, traditions, experiences, the guidance of the Holy Spirit, and other resources that inspire and guide faithful discernment. Administer the sacraments of baptism and communion faithfully, recognizing the legacy of previous generations, the importance of our ecumenical commitments, and the calling of the Spirit in our own time. Demonstrate our living relationship with the still speaking God by faithfully engaging spiritual practices. Use with care and grace the theological symbols, images, and languages that best express our understandings of God, one another, and the world. Care for God's creation through stewarding and resources of our planet for future generations. Nurture the gifts of all members of the church and cultivate a culture where those gifts can uplift the entire body of Christ. Model the generous and just love of God for all people through our service and care for our local and global community. Now, as I'm reading this, I hope that you are recognizing already the ways that these things are plainly seen across our denomination, things that have established us in our legacy, and things that we strive to be. Now, this is not, it's obviously still going to take discernment and that local church autonomy to reflect back to the wider church how that unique local church is demonstrating a living relationship with a still speaking God and engaging spiritual practices. For example, so this is meant to be a firm and faithful framework of covenantal relationship, but it's not prescriptive. The second part of the covenant is we covenant with ourselves. Relying on the grace of God, we covenant with ourselves to discern the nature of our call. As a local church, using multiple resources, including the marks of faithful and vital local churches, steward the time, talents, and financial resources of the local church responsibly with an appropriate balance of transparency and confidentiality. Attend to the physical, spiritual, mental, and emotional well-being of our clergy, lay leaders, and members by sharing responsibilities and communicating clear expectations. Have governance practices that are attentive to our faith community and context, as well as the law, accompanying those in our communities whose lives and livelihoods are threatened by systemic injustice, violence, poverty, and abuse, while acknowledging our relationship to historic injustices. Foster honest and humble communication with one another, respecting the traditions and practices of diverse cultures and lineages. Strive for just and equitable behaviors, policies, and practices in our congregation so all persons are free from threats, harm, abuse, discrimination, and exclusion. Act when harm of any kind is reported or suspected to have occurred in our church, addressing it with courage and clarity. Navigate conflict within our congregation with care towards the health of the whole church. Assess our congregation's ministry regularly. Now, as I go through that covenantal framework of what a local church covenants to itself, and a lot of these specific things, you might be saying, well, how do we navigate conflict? How do we act when harm has been reported? And the Manual on Local Church is a living document of resources that will grow. So we offer resources. Now, they're not prescriptive. None of it says you have to use this and you have to do it this way. But we have resources for all of these covenantal foundations that are being established here in the Congregational Code. That's largely what the rest of the document is. And the third part of the Congregational Code, and this is where we'll have to end after this, I'll have just a brief time of Q&A and show you how to get to the feedback survey so that we have time to get to your next session. The third part of the covenant is relying on God's grace. We covenant with other expressions of the United Church of Christ. So that would be, if you're a local church, our conference, the national setting, but also our covenantal partners. We have a number of covenantal partners in our ecosystem, including like international missions and wider church, lots of different expressions of our denomination. We covenant to participate in the covenantal life of the United Church of Christ, including with other local churches, the association, conference, general synod, national global expressions of the church. To engage in activities that strengthen the denomination's mission, vision, and purpose, including those that expand the tangible unity of all of Christ's followers. To maintain local church standing as set forth by the association or the conference acting as the association, and be responsive to the guidance of the association or conference. To honor the search and call process of the United Church of Christ, including conference practices, and strive to offer equitable compensation for staff. Support wider expressions of the United Church of Christ through denominational support, special mission offerings, and other pledges, dues, and gifts. Now, again, we as part of the working group have identified these as foundational frameworks and covenantal practices that are already plainly witnessed in our denomination and constantly expressed as that which binds us together. We're not saying this is how much money you have to support your conference with. This is the way you have to support. It doesn't even say, different ways. These are all foundations that then you're local church that is well connected with the wider settings. And finally, seek the counsel of others, including conference staff and or association committees on ministry. Should divisive tension threaten our relationship within the congregation, pastoral leadership, or wider expressions with the United Church of Christ? Model ecumenical and interfaith engagement with respect and cultural humility, offering clarity about our beliefs while respecting the differing beliefs of others. The just world covenants with integrity and ongoing reflection. I want to clarify here that this is not a mandate that you must engage just world covenants. We might end up editing this to say, please come from greater truth, from discernment together, but when engaging them, do it with integrity and ongoing reflection. Utilize established processes to dissolve our covenant with our association conference should our local church choose to end our ministry with the United Church of Christ. Strive to know, understand, and respect the diversity of perspectives within the United Church of Christ, affirming that all settings speak to the local church. So, beloveds, essentially, this was a workshop on the because it is the foundation, the covenantal framework for the rest. We have a copy of the Grow Your Church game here in Tucson, and I will make sure that it gets to Phoenix tomorrow so that you can explore that and read through the cards and look at the marks for faithful and vital local churches. But again, the Manual on Local Church is essentially seeking to resource everyone in these covenantal ways and in these frameworks. And with that, I'm actually going to, I'm going to read the questions in the chat.
Yeah, we just got a couple of minutes left.
To the, go all the way down to the end. Here you go. Play from current slide. There you go. So here's how you can offer feedback. You can look at this QR code, or you can actually manually put in www.surveymonkey.com/R, R as in Robert, /MLC presentation. That stands for Manual on Local Church presentation. So surveymonkey.com/R as in Robert, /MLC presentation. And I'll go ahead and put that link directly in the chat now too. It's 2 minutes till. So if you're starting to flush over, we're definitely going to have a hard stop at 11, but we do have a question. It looks like a big question in the chat. Does covenant mean that our work for justice with people, does it talk about justice with people beyond our denomination? What we say about relationship within the UCC is even more important than relationships for others in justice, including lasting relations across difference and generations in justice work, and continuing generations. That's a really great question that I'm not going to be able to answer fully here, but I will say that it's not prescriptive, that the wisdom and practices of the local church in that regard become the answer themselves. Thank you so much for your time. Let's see. Yes, I will send the QR code to Wendy to put into the Whova app. I'm really grateful for the time and the attention, the prayerful discernment and the conversation that you've shared with one another today. And I look forward to continuing this journey with you all well beyond this annual meeting. But I will see you all as we continue this annual meeting as the Southwest Conference as well.
Thanks so much.
I will bless you out to continue to discern what faithful covenant means and go on to your next session.
See you tomorrow. Thanks.
I don't know if Carol's still here, but we'll make sure that that link gets into Whova as well as the QR code.